Throughout human history, cities have been built to be lived in, to foster hard work, and to connect people in a natural, organic way. From the earliest civilizations in Mesopotamia to today's modern megacities, one fundamental, immovable principle has always existed. First come the people, then the buildings are constructed to house them. It's a cycle that has functioned for millennia without question. However, in the heart of the 21st century, a truly unsettling phenomenon has emerged that defies all traditional urban logic. Entire cities built completely before their inhabitants ever arrive. We're talking about infrastructure ready to go, services operating, and buildings waiting for people who never show up. The island, with over 400 residential buildings, completely devoid of people, is one of the clearest and most disturbing examples of this modern urban paradox. It is a place where absolutely everything is set and ready, from the streets to the shopping malls, except for the most important thing, life itself. These ghost cities aren't the result of war, natural disasters, or forced evacuations. They are the product of planning decisions, massive investments, and economic gambles that didn't go as expected. They represent billions of dollars poured into concrete and steel, yet they lack the soul that only human beings can give to an urban space. In this journey, we're going to explore 11 different cases of spaces that seem technically complete in every way, but lack the essential human rhythm. We'll look at the economic, political, and social forces that have shaped these cities. If you want to join us on this fascinating trip and discover what's really hiding behind these empty megastructures, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment while you watch the full video. Do you honestly believe a city should be built in anticipation of an uncertain future? Or should it wait patiently for people to claim it organically? It's a question with no easy answer. Forest City in Malaysia was officially launched in 2014 as an incredibly ambitious urban mega project. Developed by a major Chinese real estate group with political connections in both China and Malaysia, it was built on 4 entirely artificial islands created through massive land reclamation in the Johor Strait, covering a total area of nearly 14 square kilometers. Its original plans projected a capacity of up to 700,000 people living simultaneously in modern skyscrapers. From the air, the city offers a truly imposing image that takes your breath away. You see 30 and 40-story residential towers perfectly aligned against the turquoise sea, wide multi-lane avenues without a single car, meticulously designed parks with imported tropical greenery, and a complete urban infrastructure. It looks ready to sustain large-scale urban life, complete with malls, schools, hospitals, and even golf courses. The project was aggressively marketed in mainland China as an investment opportunity and a tropical paradise for Chinese retirees, with promises of easy Malaysian citizenship and access to Singapore in just minutes. Thousands of investors bought apartments without even visiting the site. Trusting virtual renderings and developer promises, projects like Forest City are exactly why the international media coined the phrase the island of 400 residential buildings without inhabitants. These are often referred to as Chinese giants, not as a direct geographic reference to China's territory, but as a way to describe an urban model developed with Chinese capital, planning, and construction speed, where buildings appear faster than people can actually move into them. However, more than 10 years after its ambitious start, the actual population remains far below capacity. Recent estimates suggest only tens of thousands of residents live permanently in the towers, while vast areas remain ghostly and empty, with lights turning on automatically in buildings where no one lives. Again, this stark contrast isn't due to poor construction or design, which meets international standards, but rather to an execution that was too fast for real housing demand, combined with regulatory changes in Malaysia that restricted foreign property ownership. This has left Forest City physically complete but socially hollow, reflecting one of the great paradoxes of 21st century hyper-urbanization. Burj Al Babas in Turkey consists of 732 individual homes, all designed with nearly identical repetitive architecture inspired by European castles. Built in a mountainous region of northwestern Turkey, as part of an ambitious luxury residential complex, the project moved at a surprising speed during the early 2000s. Hundreds of structures went up in just a few years, yet creating a visually striking landscape where architectural repetition becomes its most distinctive and haunting feature. However, when international funding began to dry up and foreign demand plummeted, construction came to an abrupt halt. It left behind a nearly finished development with absolutely no residents. Walking through it today, you don't just notice the lack of people. You notice the total lack of diversity. There are no active shops, no inviting public spaces, and no signs of daily life. Burj Al Babas proves that a city cannot survive on an attractive image alone. Urban life requires variation, a mix of uses, and continuous activity. Here, the emptiness isn't an accident. It's the direct consequence of a model that prioritized form over the social function that keeps a place alive. The Ciudad del Quiñón in Cesena, Spain, was planned to have over 13,000 homes during a period of rapid real estate expansion, aiming to house tens of thousands of new residents near Madrid. After the 2008 financial crisis, a huge portion of that housing remained unoccupied, making Cesena one of Europe's most famous examples of overdevelopment. For years, the dominant image was one of empty streets and silent buildings, a clear symbol of the gap between planning and economic reality. However, unlike other projects, the context changed over time. Growing pressure on the housing market in nearby areas eventually drove people to the municipality. Today, Cesena is home to over 15,000 residents and has shed its ghost town label. But its story is still a cautionary tale. Filling houses isn't the same as creating a city. The integration of services, transportation, education, and jobs came much later and at a high cost, requiring years of painful adjustments that still define the local area. Cesena shows that a city can recover, but mistakes in timing and scale don't just disappear. They turn into years of difficult adaptation. Songdo, South Korea, was conceived as a city planned from scratch on reclaimed land, covering about 53 square kilometers with a development timeline spanning from the early 2000s into the 2030s. Designed to integrate smart technology, advanced management systems, and high environmental standards, Songdo was marketed as the city of the future, efficient, clean, and perfectly organized. Despite now having over 160,000 residents, it was perceived as eerily quiet during its early years, with underutilized public spaces and less urban activity than expected for a city of its size. Yet the issue wasn't the infrastructure, it was the sequence. The city was built almost entirely before daily patterns of work, commerce, and social life could take root. Songdo proves that a city can be technically flawless and still lack urban intensity if the arrival of people and habits doesn't keep pace with the concrete and steel. While activity has increased over time, its early history makes it clear that urban life can't be activated by decree or design. It happens through the gradual layering of experience. The Kangbashi district in Ordos began construction in the early 2000s, fueled by an extraordinary economic boom linked to coal and energy resources. With tens of billions of dollars in public and private investment, the urban plan was designed for hundreds of thousands of people. In just a few years, wide avenues, residential complexes, museums, theaters, and government buildings appeared for a population that didn't exist yet. By 2010, the discrepancy was undeniable. The urban capacity far exceeded the actual population, and it became known internationally as a ghost city. However, Ordos shouldn't be seen simply as a calculation error, but as an example of urbanization that outpaced the social cycle. The city was built on the logic of immediate economic growth, assuming people would follow automatically. In reality, human settlement is a slower process, tied to stable jobs, services, and a sense of belonging. Over time, the population has grown, and today, tens of thousands live in Kangbashi. But the initial image of emptiness left a lasting lesson. When urban planning moves at the speed of the economy, the disconnect from daily life can be deep and persistent. Tianducheng was planned as a satellite city for about 100,000 people, visually inspired by Paris and developed on the outskirts of Hangzhou. Its most recognizable feature is a scale replica of the Eiffel Tower, surrounded by boulevards, plazas, and European-style residential buildings. From a distance, it looks like a polished, recognizable city. However, during its first few years, the population was a fraction of what was planned, with only a few thousand people occupying a space built for 10 times that many. The contrast between the urban form and daily use revealed a fundamental truth. Mimicking the look of a city doesn't guarantee its dynamics. While Tianducheng has attracted more residents over time, yet its story shows that urban identity isn't built with architectural symbols alone. A city needs functions, nearby jobs, social networks, and shared habits. Without them, even the most famous landscape feels empty and disconnected. Eco Atlantic is rising on land reclaimed from the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Lagos, Nigeria. With a planned area of 9 square kilometers and billions in investment, it aims to be a high-end financial and residential district. Conceived as a solution to coastal erosion and chaotic urban growth, it was designed for hundreds of thousands of people with the modern infrastructure and advanced maritime protection. Yet, from the start, Eco Atlantic showed a clear tension between technical ambition and social accessibility. Land and housing prices are far beyond the average local income, limiting potential residents to a tiny economic elite. As a result, large parts of the project remain underutilized. Not because of structural failures, but because the city fails to connect with a broad social base. Eco Atlantic illustrates that a city can be technically and visually stunning, but if it can't find its people, it risks becoming an isolated enclave, more of an urban showroom than a living community. Palm Jebel Ali was launched in 2002 as one of the world's most ambitious artificial islands, 50% larger than Palm Jumeirah. The master plan included tens of thousands of homes, luxury resorts, and over 100 kilometers of new coastline. Unlike other projects, its development was stalled for years due to global economic shifts, leaving vast areas unfinished. After a decade-long hiatus, the plan Sanade Ditarwat relaunched in 2024 with a more gradual execution timeline. Palm Jebel Ali proves that even with massive financial backing, time is a deciding factor in urban construction. A city cannot advance in a vacuum, ignored by economic and social cycles. When those cycles break, the built space is left suspended between promise and reality. This case reveals that scale and ambition without proper timing can turn a landmark project into a symbol of a long wait. Kaofadian was envisioned as a new coastal industrial and urban zone in Hebei province, China, aiming for a population between 500,000 and 1 million. It relied on heavy industry, port logistics, and tech development. Residential areas and avenues were built with the expectation that jobs and economic activity would arrive simultaneously. Yes, but that synchronization didn't happen as planned. According to 2020 census data, the district had about 350,000 residents. A significant number but far below its existing capacity. This left many residential complexes with very low occupancy. This case highlights a fundamental reality. Housing alone does not make a city. When jobs, services, and the daily flow of people don't accompany construction, you get a city that only partially functions, where infrastructure waits for a life that is slow to arrive. Kaofadian isn't a failed city, but a city that outpaced its own economic ecosystem, caught in the middle ground between the built and the lived. In Japan, the phenomenon of empty houses takes a different, quieter form. It's not about a construction boom, but a deep, sustained demographic shift. According to a 2023 survey, the country has approximately 9 million vacant homes, about 13.8% of its total housing stock. This is one of the highest rates among developed nations. These houses, known as Akiya, didn't go empty because of poor planning or low quality. They are empty because the population is aging, shrinking, and concentrating in major metropolitan areas, leaving behind rural towns and suburban neighborhoods. In this context, the emptiness isn't caused by speculation, but by the gradual disappearance of people. Japan shows that even with careful management, urban life can retreat when social dynamics change faster than the built environment. Here, the challenge isn't stopping construction, but learning how to manage cities that structurally have fewer and fewer inhabitants. Chenggong, a district of Kunming, it was developed as a new administrative center to help redistribute the growth of the provincial capital and ease the pressure on its historic core. The project involved massive investment in government buildings, university campuses, and residential hubs designed for hundreds of thousands. By 2023, the population exceeded 700,000. While this shows real growth, the perception of the city as fully active hasn't always matched the numbers, especially early on. The reason was the sequence. Administrative and residential infrastructure was solidified before the daily patterns of commerce and social life took hold, creating functional spaces that still lacked urban intensity. Chenggong isn't an isolated error. It's a synthesis of all these cases where planning and investment moved faster than the human experience of space. As we wrap up this journey across 4 continents, a common theme emerges that transcends borders and cultures. Cities are not defined by how many buildings they have, how tall their towers are, or how wide their streets are. They are defined by the ability of those spaces to be inhabited. to generate life and create community. When construction gets too far ahead of life, and when concrete moves faster than people, what we get isn't just an empty city. We get a city that hasn't found its time yet, suspended in limbo between a blueprint and reality. It's a powerful reminder that true urbanization isn't measured in square meters, but in lived stories, human connections, and shared memories. These projects teach us that building a city is easy if you have enough capital. The hard part, the truly complex part, is creating the conditions where people want to live, where they choose to stay, and where they make a home. Because a city without people isn't a city. It's just an empty stage waiting for the show to begin. The future of global urbanization must learn from these costly mistakes. It's not about stopping construction, it's about building with more patience, a better connection to real human needs, and more humility toward the complexity of community. Because in the end, it's people who make cities, not the other way around. If you've made it this far, thank you for your time and your curiosity. We invite you to like the video and subscribe for more content that makes you think about the world around us. Now we want to hear from you. What surprised you most about these stories? Do you know of another ghost city we should explore? Let us know in the comments.